All right. So in business ethics is the most fluid content, the most theoretical content that we'll discuss this term. But the study and understanding of ethics is very important. All right. Um, and that's because we don't really have to look that far for businesses behaving badly. All right. Um, when we think about ethics, some underlying themes to keep in mind. And I intend for this to be a framework lecture that we'll expound upon in class and go much deeper. But let's think about profit maximization. That's the idea um, that we need to make as much money as possible. That's really the goal of our one goal for many businesses, and they'll make decisions accordingly. All right, and we can compare that with the rise of the corporate citizen. These are There are a growing number of businesses who um, operate like a member of a community, right? And there are initiatives such as the triple bottom line, which measures a business's success in not only in terms of profit, but also in terms of the treatment of people, be it employees or the community or its constituents or the planet, right? What are we doing to make the planet better, to make the environment better, to increase sustainability, right? So we have these competing narratives and they're often at the expense of one another. Like business can make as much money as possible, but that oftentimes means exposing cost or detrimental effects on people and the planet and society in general. All right, so those are often diametrically opposed. Okay, so when we're talking about ethics, ethics is the study of one's perception of right and wrong, but business ethics is the study of how decisions are made within a business. All right, and so factors that business decision makers may take into account, and again, you may not weigh all of these are some of the factors. Legal implications, i.e., is the action legal or illegal, right? And that's thought to be the bare minimum. You know, suffice to say that just because what I'm doing is not illegal does not mean that that action is also ethical. All right. Public relations. This is, what if the decision was put on the front page of the newspaper? Nobody reads newspaper. What if it was put on the top of everybody's social media feed? How would that affect? Would the company still make the decision or a different decision? That's public relations impact. And that has proved to be a very powerful motivator for business and business decisions. Uh, Safety risks to employees and the public. All right. And we'll watch a documentary in class that will be able to pull out factors relating to each of these 4 points. And then, of course, the financial implications, which is, are we making money? How much does it cost? We do want to understand the difference between profit maximization in the short and the long run. Short run profit maximization um, may help boost stock price this quarter, but it may lower the company value overall in the long term. Right? So there's kind of this opposite effect, whereas long-run profit maximization takes a longer view um, and considers more factors and is more based on overall business valuation as opposed to the profit numbers for a particular quarter or a particular month, right? And that's really kind of what we're getting at here. An overemphasis on short-term profit maximization will lead to poor ethical decision making, and we'll work through some examples in class, particularly as it relates to British Petroleum in the documentary that we'll use, The Spill. Okay, so to really address ethics hypotheticals and questions that we'll see in class and on exams, we really need to understand the concept of a stakeholder. Right, now the word stakeholder sounds kind of like stockholder, but stakeholder is a much broader term. And so the idea is when a business faces an ethical question or an ethical dilemma, whose interests are being considered, right? And some possibilities are the customers. If we're selling a dangerous product, then perhaps the consumers, perhaps the consumers' interests are not being protected. All right. Owners and investors. So this is where we would find the stockholders in a publicly traded company. These are the people who stand to benefit financially when a business does well, or stand to lose when a business does not do well. Management, and often when we use the term management here, we're talking about decision makers, and most often the upper management, including the CEO, CFO, high-ranking decision makers in the company. Employees. So we can separate management from employees. When employees execute the vision of management, and the employees are not thought to be decision makers in most cases. All right. The community and the environment. Rudimentary example, right? If a paper mill can discharge waste into the local river for a negligible cost, for very, very cheap, or they can treat the waste properly and ship it off-site and have it disposed of in a drinking water source, well, obviously one of those is going to have a bigger detriment on the environment, and the other is going to cost more, right? So that's an example of a decision that would have an impact on the community and the environment. And that doesn't say the river wouldn't get cleaned up if the company decided to discharge wastewater into the river. It just means that society or another entity would be charged with paying for it. All right. Future generations. So this is going to be this is really the sustainability question. What happens in the years to come for your kids and your kids' kids? How does this business dilemma, this ethical dilemma, how does it affect the environment that your kids will exist in? So that's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but that is a fairly broad list of stakeholders whose decisions could be affected by an ethical dilemma.